Welcome to the Cocktail Spirit from Small Screen Network. I'm your host, Robert Hess. In this episode, we're going to take and do the Royalist Cocktail. It's a whiskey cocktail with Benedictine and dry vermouth. Let's take a look. We're going to start off with 1.5 ounces of dry vermouth. Dry vermouth ends up being the strongest piece here from an ingredient standpoint, which is kind of interesting. It's kind of unusual to take and do a drink that has so much dry vermouth in it. A lot of bartenders shy away from dry vermouth. They think it's evil, and I think that comes from the martini and the less and less vermouth put in a martini, the better and better supposedly the martini is. When in fact it's more about the quality of the vermouth you're using and whether or not you're leaving the vermouth out and getting all gross, because it's basically a wine and it's going to age and oxidize and stuff. And so always use like either a fresh bottle of dry vermouth or keep it in the cooler so that it maintains itself. And after a few weeks go by, even once you've opened it up, if you've still got some left, maybe throw it out. All the more reason to use that much more dry vermouth in your martini next time. Then to the 1.5 ounces of dry vermouth, we're going to add 3/4 ounce of Benedictine. I feel there aren't enough Benedictine cocktails in the world, and so here's one more. And then we're going to add 3/4 ounce of whiskey. Now I'm going to be using George Dickel Tennessee whiskey. Now when people run across the name Tennessee whiskey, suddenly they treat it as almost like a different product, just like there's bourbon whiskey, there's rye whiskey, there's Canadian whiskey, and now we have Tennessee whiskey. Technically, now maybe the Tennessee whiskey people may not like this so much, but the Tennessee whiskey could be called bourbon. Everything that goes into bourbon, Tennessee whiskey does. However, Tennessee whiskey then takes an extra step by doing charcoal filtering to it, which I think adds a nice mellow character to it. But if you're making a recipe with it, just think about bourbon recipes and try that using a Tennessee whiskey, kind of see how it works. I think this recipe works really well with George Dickel. And then finally, we add 2 dashes of peach bitters. Or I guess really finally we add the ice. Now if we consider this drink, it is somewhat similar to a Manhattan, but not. So you got whiskey, you've got, rather than sweet vermouth, you've got Benedictine and dry vermouth, and rather than aromatic bitters, we're using a peach bitters. The dry vermouth is the most heavy component in there, and so it's going to take and be adding some other flavors to it. So it's like a Manhattan, but not. Flavor-wise, the dry vermouth and the Benedictine are really working well together, and the whiskey is actually pulling the whole thing together, adding its own kind of spiciness as well. The peach bitters is adding that little teeny bit of almost like a small notice of fruit on the back of it. I really like this quite a bit. And there we have the Royalist cocktail.